Welcome to Geoscope. The US and Canada, partners, neighbors, and one of the world's most integrated economies, are suddenly drifting apart. Trade, tourism, and trust are all taking hits as tariffs rise, tempers flare, and quiet retaliation builds north of the border. From collapsing cross-border travel to a new Buy Canadian movement, this once seamless relationship is shifting gears. Here's how the cracks are widening, and what they reveal about North America's economic future. One cracks at the border, tourism runs out of gas. For decades, the US-Canada border symbolized an unparalleled friendship. Known as the world's longest undefended border, it facilitated a seamless flow of people and commerce. Millions of crossings each year wove the two nations into a single community. This was especially visible in the annual migration of Canadian snowbirds. They flocked south, packing Florida beaches and Arizona golf courses. Their spending was a vital artery for these local economies, a predictable injection of billions that supported countless American jobs. But in 2025, that easy flow stalled. The once bustling border crossings began to feel eerily quiet, as a decades-old rhythm of cross-border life hit a wall. The numbers paint a stark picture. In the peak summer month of July, trips by car plunged nearly 37%. Air travel fell 26%. This wasn't a gradual decline, it was a sudden drop-off, representing millions of canceled trips and billions in lost revenue. The cause wasn't recession, but a political firestorm. The slowdown was fueled by rising tariffs that made shopping trips costly. This was compounded by sharp political rhetoric from Washington. And, for many, the final straw was talk of Canada becoming America's 51st state, a comment striking at the heart of Canadian national identity. The response from Canada was swift and personal. Feeling disrespected, many Canadians chose to vote with their wallets. A Buy Canadian sentiment surged. For those still traveling, the US was off the list as they booked trips to Europe and other destinations instead. This shift created a historic reversal. For the first time, more Americans drove north than Canadians headed south. Back in the US, the economic pain became undeniable. In places like Myrtle Beach and Plattsburgh, New York, the impact is devastating. Hotels and restaurants once fueled by Canadian visitors now face half-empty books, and outlet malls sit quiet. What was once a symbol of partnership has become collateral damage in a political feud. The economic and cultural ties woven over generations are unraveling, leaving communities on both sides to wonder if their unique relationship can ever be fully repaired. 2 tariffs in overdrive, 35% duties, and no way around. If tourism is slowing, trade is taking a direct hit. The US-Canada trade relationship, one of the largest in the world, is built on deeply integrated supply chains. Billions of dollars in goods cross the border daily, and that intricate system is now being systematically targeted. On August 1st, President Trump raised tariffs on Canadian goods from 25% to 35%, invoking national security. The justification, typically reserved for hostile nations, was Canada's alleged failure to curb illicit drug flows. This sent shockwaves through the international community as it was aimed at America's closest ally. Ottawa called it absurd, especially since Canada's drug trafficking link is negligible. The Canadian government's response was sharp, labeling the tariffs unjustified and unacceptable. Officials noted US data shows most fentanyl enters from other countries, suggesting the move was a punitive tactic, not a security measure. A 40% surcharge now targets any Canadian exports rerouted through third countries. To prevent workarounds, the White House implemented this punishing duty. The message was clear. Canadian companies couldn't simply ship through Mexico or Europe to escape the economic pressure. Steel and aluminum already face 50% duties. Auto parts, 25%. These new tariffs were piled on top of existing ones that had already crippled key sectors. Beyond metals and auto parts, Canadian lumber for American homes and agricultural products were also hit hard. The result? Industries on both sides of the border are bleeding. Business models built over decades on the seamless, tariff-free border established by NAFTA and the USMCA were suddenly shattered. US manufacturers relying on Canadian parts now face higher costs, passed straight to consumers. In the highly integrated auto industry, a single component might cross the border multiple times before a car is finished. Each crossing now adds a new layer of cost. Economists warn American households could pay up to $2,400 more per year. a boomerang effect hitting home. This isn't just a corporate problem. That potential increase comes from higher prices on new cars, home renovations, and even groceries. It's a hidden tax on American families. Tariffs meant to punish Canada are quietly punishing Americans too. Shifting gears, Canada rewrites its trade playbook. For a century, Canada's economy leaned southward, with the US buying nearly 80% of its exports. Now that dependency is breaking. Between May 2024 and May 2025, US-bound exports dropped to 68%, their lowest share in decades. Meanwhile, shipments to new partners are soaring. Gold exports to the UK up 473%. Energy to Singapore surging. Aluminum to Italy climbing fast. Canada's trade deficit has narrowed, driven by this new wave of diversification. Economists say it's not just reaction, it's reinvention. Ottawa's message is clear: never again depend on one customer. Diversification isn't defiance, it's insurance. 4. The local drive. Buy Canadian takes the wheel back on Canadian soil. The trade dispute ignited a quiet but powerful economic rebellion. It was a grassroots movement taking shape in shopping aisles and on main streets, driven by a collective desire for economic self-determination. The Buy Canadian campaign transformed from a slogan into a tangible consumer reality. Suddenly, product labels mattered more than ever. This wasn't just passive preference, it was an active, conscious choice. Polls revealed a startling trend. Nearly 70% of Canadians were consciously avoiding US products, even when it meant paying a premium. Each dollar spent became a vote of confidence in domestic producers, a clear message of investment in their own economy. In response, Canadian businesses began a strategic pivot. They aggressively worked to boost compliance with new USMCA trade rules, re-engineering supply chains to source more materials from within North America. Before the dispute, barely half of exports met these requirements. Now, that number has surged to over 2/3, securing their access to the continental market. Crucially, the external pressure forced an internal reckoning. Ottawa accelerated efforts to dismantle the archaic trade barriers that had long divided its own provinces. Experts estimate that creating this seamless national market could unlock a staggering $200 billion in GDP, a powerful engine for domestic growth. And then there's Canada's enduring trump card, energy. With new LNG terminals and expanded pipeline capacity, Canada is forging new export lanes to markets in Europe and Asia. This strategic diversification does more than open new revenue streams. It fundamentally reduces America's historic leverage as Canada's primary energy customer. What started as retaliation has evolved into a comprehensive blueprint for resilience. From the consumer's wallet to the nation's ports, Canada is actively rewriting its economic destiny, forging a stronger, more independent path forward. 5. Politics in the fast lane, power plays and pushback. The trade war is now political. Prime Minister Mark Carney is standing firm. Canada will not trade sovereignty for tariff relief. Public opinion backs him. Over 90% of Canadians want less US reliance. 2/3 now view Washington unfavorably, and most say they'll avoid US goods and travel. Meanwhile, the White House is using what analysts call floating rationale, shifting justifications from fentanyl to dairy to keep Canada guessing. The next showdown looms in 2026 when the USMCA comes up for review. If talks collapse, it could redraw the map of North American trade. Verdict: from tariff turmoil to tougher self-reliance, 2025 has tested Canada's resilience. Tourism fell, trade rerouted, and tempers flared. But amid the strain, a new identity is emerging: self-reliant, adaptive, and less tethered to Washington's whims. Canada's no longer coasting in America's shadow. It's learning to drive its own economic destiny. So, what happens next? Can Canada's pivot outlast US pressure? Will Americans realize tariffs are backfiring before they feel the pain? Let's hear your thoughts below. This is Geoscope, where we decode the world's turning points.